Sorry, I realize this is rude, but I really don't like your face.
No, I get that a lot.
Not one bit. You just always look like you stepped in something.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to youtube.com/Rogformer. I'm your host for today, Pokorny. So I just finished Tales from the Borderlands Season 1, and I wanted to review it for you all. So, without further ado, here is my review. Enjoy! Tales from the Borderlands is just a strange video game. Announced a few years ago over at VGX, this was right after Walking Dead, and Telltale Games was feeling high. Everyone was waiting to see what Telltale would pull out of their hat next franchise, or if they do something original. What would Telltale do after the success of Walking Dead Season 1? At first they announced Game of Thrones, which made total sense with Telltale. It's drama, it's really popular. These two made a ton of sense, but the other one was a little weird. Tales from the Borderlands. That was the clear outlier of the group. While Telltale back in the day did do comedy adventure games with their critically acclaimed Sam & Max series, they became known for pure drama later on in their career, so tackling a gameplay-heavy franchise that's full of humor and comedic situations felt like a recipe for Telltale to fail. But after playing the entire series as they release, I can confidently say that Tales from the Borderlands is not a failure. It's actually one of the best things that Telltale Games has ever created. From the first episode, it was abundantly clear that this was going to be a bit of a different experience. The entire structure of Tales is just bizarre, but perfect for the Borderlands series. You play as not just one, but two characters, and the game organically and automatically switches you between both of them when the story calls for it. If that wasn't abnormal enough for you, the story revolves around Reese and Fiona, and after being kidnapped, are forced by a mysterious hooded person to recount certain events that landed them in a not-so-pretty situation. Because they're recounting their adventure, the majority of the game consists of flashbacks, but is occasionally broken up by a disagreement or dispute over whose side is right. This is a fun way to tell a story that really does show how different both main characters are and how ridiculous the story can really get. The bickering and the deciding between whose story was right, whose story was wrong, really only happens in the first episode or so. After that, it's pretty much just all flashbacks with little hints of what's going on in the present time. If you're looking for them to bickering and like different stories all the time now, it's pretty much gonna be one concise story after episode 1. The main story being told focuses on Reese and Fiona and their misadventures trying to find a vault key. Reese, played by Troy Baker, is a driven yet bumbling corporate player at the evil company Atlas, and for you Borderlands fans out there, you know Atlas is the company that Handsome Jack previously ran until he croaked in Borderlands 2. After the death of Handsome Jack, there's a massive hole in the company, and Reese wants to fill that void by following in Handsome Jack's footsteps and leading Atlas into the next generation. With his nerdy and weirdly ripped friend Vaughn, played by the wonderful Chris Hardwick, the group goes to the dangerous planet of Pandora in search of a supposed vault key that will unlock untold riches in order to bring it back to Atlas and become the new leaders. That's where the very slick and brilliant Fiona, played by Laura Bailey, comes in. She and her sister Sasha, played by Erin Yvette, are orphan master con artists who grew up on the streets of Pandora. They end up scamming Reese and Vaughn, but eventually both parties must come together and form a team when the opportunity of getting a real vault key comes about. Right from the get-go, you know this game is massive. I mean, the second episode starts off with a freaking moonbeam shooting down and blowing up a massive monster. These are huge stakes going on here, and somehow the notorious Telltale engine keeps it all together without the game just exploding at 1 frame per second. Granted, I'm playing the game on a gaming PC, but it ran extraordinarily well, and the game looks exactly like Borderlands 2. The stylistic choices are bold, and they really do fit well inside of the overarching Borderlands universe. And it feels like there were really no technical compromises when dealing with the game, which is refreshing to hear from a Telltale game. But while the technical aspect of it is important, story is king in adventure games. Tales feels different and unique, and it completely lives up to that feeling. Everything about the series is and feels wholly original, which is fairly interesting because this is a Borderlands tale, and I think that really speaks to how good the game's story is. After the first few episodes, the game stops relying on the references to the greater Borderlands universe and starts to find solace in being its own tale and creating the best characters possible inside of that world. I actually respect respect and admire this creative decision because it honestly would have been probably a lot more profitable for them to show off a Vault Hunter every episode or bring in an obvious tie to a new Borderlands game, but without that, the game is just better off. And that's not to say there aren't ties to the greater Borderlands series. The game does feature the occasional inclusion of previous Borderlands characters like Zero, Scooter, Athena, and of course Handsome Jack, as well as a slew of references and Borderlands locales from the previous games. But you know what interests me more? The ties to maybe a supposed Borderlands 3 game, and if you really look at it, this game could be the setup for Borderlands 3. The way that I always equate this game is to a heist comedy road trip adventure. The main drive of these characters are greed. They want to have all the riches that Vault carries, and they're willing to go to different planets if they have to in order to get what they want. Even though their every move is motivated by greed, and even when they're doing something nice, it's mostly in order to get something morally gray, their characters are so uniquely lovable and relatable. Everyone from Reese and Fiona to a few random goons all have motives that the game delves into and gives you empathy for, even the scummiest of criminals. That was the most surprising thing for me. Tales from the Borderlands is shockingly morally cloudy, and your choices really are hard to make. The game tackles issues that you'd think would be more aligned with their other franchises like Walking Dead or Wolf Among Us, but they fit perfectly in the context with what Telltale is presenting to you. Games like success, betrayal, love, what would you do for money, these are things that are very mature and handled very well inside of Tales from the Borderlands, the reason being because of the amazing humor and the amazing drama that are juxtaposed between each other. Easily the funniest game I've ever played, Tales from the Borderlands takes the outlandish and occasional casual comedy of the previous games that seem so ingrained in the soul of the series, and is perfectly replicated in the 5 episodes. Often off the walls and sometimes just downright subtle, Tales doesn't rely on cheap laughs or crude humor, but more focuses on how crazy the situation is and finds humor in the grand stakes and how characters react to such pressure. It almost always is a setup for amazing humor, and I can count on one hand the amount of times jokes fell flat over the entire 5 episodes. I was actually excited every single episode when they would come out to play Tales from the Borderlands because it's a fun time to play. Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us, these are games that really take a chunk out of you emotionally and just keep it. It's not a fun time to play necessarily, they're emotional times. So this game is fun, it's lighthearted, it's a good time. My favorite parts of this game are by far the intros. The intros to every episode are kind of spoilers. I don't really want to explain them or show them to you, but the intros are fantastic, and I find myself watching them over and over and listening to the music because they're stylish, they're so Borderlands, and they set a tone for every single episode, and they're highlights of the entire series. The only downside to the comedy, drama, and characters all mixing into one is that there seems to be a bit too many storylines. By the 5th episode, the story felt incredibly rushed. The game set up so many storylines that really dealt with serious subject matter, and all of those loose ends were still open by episode 5. And 40 minutes into that episode, the majority of those storylines were tied up. It felt incredibly rushed, and like the creators were backed into a corner and were faced with a choice: cutting a few storylines a tad short, or sacrificing the idea for their finale, and they chose the former. While it's the better of the two choices because that finale is amazing, it felt sloppy, and I can't scratch the feeling that this game needed another episode to truly deal with some of these storylines. Specifically the Handsome Jack storyline. I mean, for all out of the loop, it's kind of a spoiler, but not really because it's in the trailer. Handsome Jack is implemented into Reese, at least an AI version of him is, and Reese is having trouble dealing with this and dealing with the internal struggle of, what do I do? Do I give in to Handsome Jack? These are very interesting questions, especially since Reese is trying to mirror Handsome Jack in his behaviors, so it's just very interesting. And by episode 5, that storyline was cut really short, I would say in the first 15 to 20 minutes. But that's the thing about Tales from the Borderlands. Even when it has problems, it's solid as a rock. There are no bad episodes of the game. Telltale games really do tend to waver around episode 3 or 4, but Tales really holds steady throughout the entire run of the series, and is constantly witty, smart, and fun. If you're looking for crazy gameplay changes to Telltale's formula, you're not gonna find that. But you know what you're gonna find? An amazing story with choices that are hard, but actually matter. Characters that are extremely lovable and human, and a story that is so grand it rivals main Borderlands games. While the game does have its problems with dealing with storylines, the actual experience is worth way more than its final frames. Tales from the Borderlands is an amazing game, and it's a game that I feel like a lot of people are going to miss because they feel like they don't like the Borderlands franchise. But here's the thing, if you don't care about Borderlands, you can still love this video game just like me. Tales from the Borderlands is an amazing game and an amazing time for anyone that likes adventure games as a whole or just comedy in video games. And it totally should be on everyone's Game of the Year watch because this game is absolutely fantastic, and I give Tales from the Borderlands a 9.0 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review, I really appreciate it. Please give me criticism in the comments below, trying out different things. Hopefully you like it. Rogformer, signing out. Peace.